Kannagi Ayano is training her fire magic as usual with her friends around her. A change occurs in the Kannagi household's fate after Yagami Kazuma, who was banished from the house for being useless at fire magic, returns after 4 years with his Fuujutsu, the ability to control wind. Kazuma is invited to a house troubled by an evil spirit in order to exile it alongside another member of the Kannagi Branch, Shinji. Kazuma has a little argument with Shinji before a huge explosion in the building clarifies everyone about the arrival of the spirit. Shinji falls to the ground and the spirit turns out to be Yoma. The man who called the two to his place starts to beg for his life, and Kazuma easily destroys the Yoma with his wind slashes after bargaining the right price. The news about Kazuma's arrival gets spread in the family, and his father, Genma, still refuses to take him back, calling him a failure. Shinji initially gets scolded by the head of the family for his poor performance, but the situation gets worse when he gets murdered later that night, along with other members of the clan using wind magic, putting the obvious blame on Kazuma. Our poor guy has problems building up for no reason. Ayano, who is Kazuma's younger cousin, decides to settle the matter herself and looks for Kazuma with 2 other members of the family. They encounter Kazuma near a construction site, and just when Kazuma knocks the 3 over their feet, someone else kills the 2 guys who came with Ayano, making her believe that Kazuma did the deed. Ayano initially loses her temper and starts attacking Kazuma, but he manages to tell her that he wasn't the one who killed the guys, convincing her to investigate further. Ayano keeps stressing about things that she hates about Kazuma the next day at school. Meanwhile, at the Kannagi household, people started turning more and more against Kazuma, assuming that she is the culprit behind the murders. Genma holds a meeting with the leader of the family about the recent matter, and explains how he finds it hard for Kazuma to be dumb enough to let Ayano find out such a significant event as a murder. The leader states his doubts, and Genma reveals his plan to investigate the matter with Kazuma himself. Kazuma receives a call from Genma for the first time after 4 years, telling him to meet up with him. Kazuma waits near a river where he reminisces about how his father banished him for his incompatibility with fire magic from the Kannagi family. The father and son finally reunite, and after Kazuma refuses to turn himself in, the two have a duel of abilities. The fight continues, and after a little while of exchanging blows, Genma decides to pull the ace up his sleeve and uses the Azure Fire technique. Kazuma counters it with his own Wind Spirit technique and manages to defeat his father, still feeling upset afterwards. Kazuma proceeds to meet up with his little brother Ren at a hotel, and the two have a chat where Ren tries to convince him to come back to the clan. Ayano finds out about Kazuma's location and rushes to confront him, while Kazuma and Ren get attacked by the same wind user from earlier. Kazuma drops Ren off in a forest to keep him safe, as he confronts the wind user again, but things take a turn and Ren gets kidnapped by the wind user, much to Kazuma's dismay. While the situation with Kazuma and Ren was going on, the building Kazuma was staying at got cut in half, getting destroyed. The police roll up on the situation and determine that the cut was so clean that it could only be done by wind magic, leading them to suspect Kazuma yet again. Kazuma reluctantly visits the Kannagi house to meet up with the leader, Jugo, and is initially interfered by some members of the family who Kazuma disposes of quickly. Jugo comes out and agrees to talk after Kazuma reveals that Ren got kidnapped. They exchange information and deduce Ryuya from the Fuga clan to be the culprit. Ayano charges in the house absurdly blaming Kazuma, but later settles down when Jugo reveals the betrayal of the Fuga clan. Jugo assigns Kazuma to secure Ren, who is supposedly being used as a sacrifice in a Yoma ritual, and sends Ayano with him for backup, after accepting Kazuma's request for payment. The pair is on their way to the site when they get attacked by Ryuya, the host of a Yoma spirit. Kazuma dumps Ayano on Ryuya to handle him herself, and leaves to save Ren from the ceremony. Ren is about to be sacrificed to the spirit of Geiho, but Kazuma manages to make it in the nick of time, restraining the spirit to save Ren. The celebration does not take long as Ryuya arrives at the ceremony site, implying that Ayano had lost to him. Even after Kazuma's restraints, the spirit of Geiho draws towards Ryuya and ends up merging together, marking the arrival of Geiho-sama. Kazuma helps Ayano and takes her and Ren with him to stop the ghost of Geiho-sama from causing any more destruction. Kazuma motivates the other two before dropping Ren to deal with the evil ghost earlier. Kazuma and Ayano launch a charged attack at Geiho, but it turns out that Geiho is a lot stronger than Kazuma initially imagined, since their combination attacks couldn't harm him either. Kazuma tells Ayano to stall some more time for him to use his power-up techniques, and Ayano fiercely fights the spirit while Kazuma uses his contract with the King of Wind Spirits. Kazuma's eyes turn blue, and he restrains Geiho with a powerful full wind spell to give Ayano enough time to stab him to death. The dangerous fight wraps up, and with Ren safe, Kazuma visits his old man in the hospital, telling him not to push himself too much, clearly showing father and son finally warming up to each other. Kazuma is invited to a celebration feast by Jugo at the Kannagi household. Kazuma reluctantly joins the feast and is approached by a girl named Misao, who thanks him for taking revenge for her brother. Kazuma reveals that her brother's death is partly his fault as well, since he was the one who knocked him out, leading Misao to attack him out of hatred. Kazuma easily blocks the attack with wind and leaves the party, telling others not to stress the situation. Kazuma makes Ayano jealous as he is hanging out with a woman named Kirika, and Ayano follows him to find out Misao meeting him up at a restaurant for a date. Kazuma walks around a little with Misao, who is nicely dressed and suddenly gets attacked by assassins hired by Misao to take revenge. Kazuma makes light work of the assassins and takes them out before Misao could even think about doing something, making her leave crying. Ayano goes after Misao to confront her and is about to use magic against her when Kazuma arrives on the rooftop, telling Ayano to stay away since Misao is not involved with them. Kazuma upsets Misao even more after claiming that Misao is incapable of hurting him, and after getting devastated, Misao meets a mysterious guy who offers to fuel her hatred and grant her power for taking revenge. A week had passed since the incident with Misao, and she killed the woman in a secluded place with the help of the new slime power she got. Ayano visits Kazuma in his hotel and tells him about Jugo wanting to recruit him to investigate the case of the multiple murders committed this past week involving Misao. Kazuma concludes that the murders are caused by a specific type of Yoma and rejects Ayano's offer to collaborate, calling her a burden. Being the meathead she is, Ayano runs away from the hotel in anger, followed by her friends while attracting a lot of attention. This turned out to be part of Kazuma's plan, and Misao used the slime Yoma to attack Ayano and her friends. Ayano fights back and is later helped by Kazuma to fend the enemy off. Kazuma flies off after making fun of Ayano again to Misao's location in order to confront her. Their confrontation is again disturbed by the not-so-smart Ayano, and Misao flees to gain more power. Jugo gets the Ogami family as well as the police in on the case, and Kirika from the police secludes the church where Misao is taking shelter. Misao's father confronts her about her actions, and she claims to be waiting for Kazuma while making fun of Ayano. Kazuma arrives at the scene from the air while still having faith in Misao to solve the case and get Misao out of getting eaten by her own vengeful thoughts.